Hold on and get ready for the thrill ride of your life as Sylvester Stallone takes us on an explosive adventure in Cliffhanger, an action-packed, adrenaline-pumping, rock-climbing action movie that packs a punch. Released in 1993, Cliffhanger tells the story of Gabe, played by Stallone, who is a professional mountain climber and rescue ranger in the Colorado Rockies, and after failing to save his best friend's girlfriend, she plummets to her death, to which Gabe leaves the town for 8 months, and when he returns he is caught up in a terrorist siege, where a group of terrorists led by John Lithgow steal $100 million from the US Treasury, only to crash land in the Rockies. Gabe must lead a one-man war to stop these evil bad guys, where he uses his rock climbing skills in order to survive and to save those who are dear to him. So join with me today as we look into this very enjoyable action-adventure movie from the 90s, as we look into 10 things that you didn't know about Cliffhanger. Check it out! Number 10. Cliffhanger came to be because of several failed movie attempts. Cliffhanger was produced by Carol Co. Pictures, whom had previously distributed Terminator 2 Judgment Day and Universal Soldier. It was designed to be a Sylvester Stallone vehicle, whose name in the 80s and 90s usually assured big box office numbers, and Stallone had previously worked with Carol Co. Pictures on the Rambo movies. However, it was a long road to Cliffhanger. Interestingly, of all things, the project was going to be a comedy movie directed by John Hughes, co-starring John Candy, with the movie being called Bartholomew vs. Neff. And no, I'm not kidding, it was going to see Stallone and Candy as feuding neighbours, with all kinds of comedic shenanigans. But the project was scrapped. Then the Stallone project became a science fiction movie called Isobar, which was to co-star Kim Basinger, and to be directed by Ridley Scott, but that project was also scrapped. Then the project became an action movie called Gale Force, which was described as Die Hard in a hurricane, where Stallone plays an ex-Navy SEAL who has to stop modern-day pirates who attack a small town during a hurricane. And it was during the production of Gale Force that Die Hard 2 and A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 director Renny Harlin got involved in the project. However, that project was also scrapped. Damn, I guess Carol Co. just couldn't find the right movie for Stallone. However, I like to think that the Bartholomew vs. Neff movie exists in a parallel universe, because I have to see Sylvester Stallone and John Candy as feuding neighbours. Number 9. Evening out the finances. Gale Force was cancelled just mere weeks before its production was due to begin. It pretty much collapsed because of issues with the script, with it getting constant rewrites from scriptwriters and budget issues. Pretty much everyone who was involved in Gale Force then shifted to Cliffhanger, included main star Sylvester Stallone and director Renny Harlin. Cliffhanger was written by Michael Franz, who would go on to write the screenplay for GoldenEye and Hulk. Sylvester Stallone himself also did rewrites to the script. The screenplay itself was based on another screenplay by American rock climber John Long. Yeah, this is a very complicated production. Cliffhanger was given a budget of $70 million, which apparently was double Gale Force's production. Due to Carolco's debt issues, TriStar Pictures provided half of the movie's budget, and in return would maintain distribution rights in certain countries, along with other studios and companies chipping in on the movie's production, such as Studio Canal, an Italian stock exchange media group, and Japanese corporation Pioneer. And yes, all these other companies adding to the cookie jar, so to speak, so Cliffhanger could be made, meant that Carolco didn't really end up making much money out of Cliffhanger in the box office. Number 8. Filming location. Although Cliffhanger is set in the Colorado Rockies in the USA, the movie was mostly filmed in Italy. All of the beautiful mountain scenery was shot on location at Cortina d'Ampezzo in the Dolomites in northeastern Italy. And growing up as a kid, I never would have guessed that Cliffhanger was filmed in Italy. I always thought it was somewhere in the States. In fact, the bridge that was destroyed in that one scene was a real bridge that was on location, and after filming, the production had to replace the bridge. However, some minor scenes were actually filmed in the States. particularly at Durango, Colorado. Number 7. The $1 Million Stunt. Without a doubt, Cliffhanger has some pretty damn impressive stunts in it. Even by today's standards, they are pretty jaw-dropping. For a movie that promises rock climbing action, you definitely get what you pay for. However, one of the movie's most ambitious stunts sees one of the villains travel from one plane to another via a wire while both planes are in flight. For its time, this was hell crazy. The stunt was performed by stuntman Simon Crane, who has also done stunt work on several James Bond movies and James Cameron's Titanic, and in order to do the stunt, he was paid $1 million. Initially, the studio didn't want to pay that fee, so the stunt actually might have been scrapped. However, thankfully, Sylvester Stallone knew that the stunt would be pretty spectacular, so he paid the stuntman out of his own expenses, and it truly paid off. For its time, this was the largest fee a stuntman had received, of which the $1 million fee even made it to the Guinness World Records. Incidentally, the movie is dedicated to Wolfgang Gulrich, who did a lot of the stunt work for Sylvester Stallone's character in Cliffhanger. The stuntman sadly passed away shortly after filming Cliffhanger due to a car accident. Number 5. Original Villain. In Cliffhanger, John Lithgow plays the maniacal main villain Quaylen. He is so ridiculously evil, he's almost like a James Bond villain. All he needs is an evil lair. And this isn't a complaint either, as I love his performance in the movie, and you can just tell that Lithgow is having a lot of fun with it. When I first saw Cliffhanger, the only other thing I saw Lithgow in was Santa Claus the movie, and I remember watching it for the first time and thinking, oh wow, BZ is in this movie. Wow, Rambo versus BC, now there's a combo. However, before Lithgow was cast, Christopher Walken was set to star in the role, and wow, that would have been interesting. Previously, Walken had played Max Zorin in the Bond film A View to a Kill, where he proved he is more than capable of playing an over-the-top megalomaniac psychopath. That, and I would have loved to have seen a stare down between Walken and Stallone, but for whatever reason, Walken walked out of the project and would go on to shove a watch up his ass. Who knows, maybe in the future we might still get that Walken and Stallone combo, even if they are now both slightly older. Number 4. Video game. To coincide with the movie's release, Cliffhanger was released as a video game in several formats, including Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, and oddly the original Nintendo. Which I find strange, as at that stage most gamers had put away their old Nintendos and had long moved to the Super Nintendo. The gameplay is pretty basic. It's a side-scroller where you walk around the mountaintop scenery fighting off bad guys and collecting scattered money as seen in the movie, till you reach the final level where you must take on Quaylen by shooting the crap out of his helicopter. The game had pretty good graphics for its time, however the game never really took off and struck a chord with gamers. And the game actually got a lot of criticism for its gameplay, with it being labelled as a poor Double Dragon clone. Not to mention the fact that many complained that the controls were too slow to respond on the Nintendo version. And the game also won Worst Movie-Based Video Game by Electronic Gamely Monthly in 1994. Number 3. Director's Cut. Yes, there was an extended director's cut, but if you're excited to hear this, maybe you should contain that excitement, as one person who isn't very enthusiastic about this cut of the movie is Sylvester Stallone himself, who basically said the director's cut is unrealistic, citing that usually when people jump across a gorge, usually they can jump 12 feet, whereas the director's cut sees characters leaping 300 feet or more. The director's cut was met with poor reception at its screening, so it was scrapped, with Stallone insisting that the original cut that we all know and love is better. Speaking of alternative visions of the movie poster of Cliffhanger we got here in Australia was this one of Sylvester Stallone dangling from a rock. It's simple but effective, and lets you know that Stallone is going to be getting up to some extreme rock climbing. However, the official poster released in the US was this more illustrated one, which I can't help but feel like has a sort of Drew Struzan look about it. But to me, it doesn't quite capture the feel or energy of the movie. In Europe, there was this alternative one which I felt made it look like a Rambo movie. Look at it! Just give Stallone a mullet and it's totally Rambo. I'm also not a fan of this alternative poster which just screams out the words, "Hang on," without saying anything about the movie. Without looking closely, I wouldn't have even known this was a poster for Cliffhanger. Okay, poster, I'm hanging on, but what exactly am I meant to be hanging on to? Yeah, I think we got it right in Australia. There doesn't need to be some fancy illustration or the words "hold on" screaming at you. Just show Stallone on a rock and that's all you'll need. Number 2, failed sequel. Sylvester Stallone and TriStar did indeed plan a sequel to Cliffhanger as early as 1994, 1 year after the release of Cliffhanger. The sequel was to be called The Dam, as in Dam, not Jean-Claude Van Damme. It sees the Gabe character swinging back into action once again to take on terrorists who take over the Hoover Dam. But the sequel was subsequently dropped and nothing came of it. Who knows? If there were several sequels, maybe Gabe might have become one of Stallone's most recognizable characters, up there with Rocky and Rambo, and will probably be referring to the movies as the Gabe series. Stallone did once again flirt with the idea of a sequel in 2008, but still nothing happened. In 2009, Studio Canal announced that there would be a reboot. In 2014, it was claimed that the script for the reboot was taking place. In 2015, Stallone said that he was once again finally making a Cliffhanger sequel. Then supposedly in 2019, it was announced yet again that there would be a reboot of Cliffhanger. But at this stage, just who the hell knows what's happening? Just make something original. There, problem solved. Number 1, reception. Cliffhanger was released in May 1993 and was a massive success, bringing in $255 million on its $70 million budget. The film's critical response was pretty good too. The rock climbing setting gave the die-hard action genre of that time a refreshing approach. Cliffhanger would also go on to be nominated for 3 Academy Awards, including for Best Special Effects, but understandably it lost to Jurassic Park. As mentioned, most of the companies that contributed to Cliffhanger's budget enjoyed most of the box office success, with Carolco not making much money off Cliffhanger, and 2 years later the company closed down due to its monetary problems. However, not everyone was impressed. The film apparently pissed off the mountain climbing community for the inaccuracies in the film and for its unrealistic and often violent portrayal of the sport. The movie was even nominated for 3 Razzies, including Worst Actor for John Lithgow, which is just crazy. So it seemed that you either love the movie or hate it. But going back by memory, I do think that more people tend to love it, and I do think it is looked back upon fondly nowadays. Either way, Cliffhanger is just a fun popcorn movie. It's not meant to be a depiction of real life, it's just a fun 2-hour thrill ride. And the movie more than does its job of entertaining. So that was my exploration into Cliffhanger. It's a fun action movie, and as far as being a Stallone movie goes, it's a Stallone movie of top quality, with great action, stunts and special effects. So if you want some popcorn fun, check out Cliffhanger. You won't be disappointed. It is exciting and it is full of frills and spills. Anyway, I'm Minty, and I'm off to explore another dimension to see that John Candy and Stallone Bad Neighbours comedy. See ya!